This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is April 15th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne tonight, joined by producer Kevin Tucker. Kevin, we will be talking about the Southeast Division champion Orlando Magic in the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. How are we feeling?
Bro, I'm so fired up. I'm just so fired up. If anyone is able to watch the post-game live that we got to do this afternoon, Jonathan and I actually both did part of that together. It was electric, man. It's just hard to believe. Like, we'll talk, obviously, in this show about the Milwaukee game and about clinching the playoffs and about this whole season and everything. But the feeling I felt for the last, 6 hours since this game was over where we're recording now, just gratitude. Like, I'm just so grateful. It's been a great season. And it's not over. Like, that's the cool part. There are still amazing memories to be made here over the next several weeks, and I'm really excited to get to do that with you guys on the show and get to do that with Magic fans everywhere. It's going to be a really awesome time.
Yeah, this game started to get out of hand. Late into the game, Joe Ingles hits a 3 to put the Magic up 25 with 7 minutes 10 seconds left, and I was just sitting here on my couch like screaming. And then when I sat down and it started to really set in that we were winning this game. You're up 25 with 7 minutes to go. That's as close as it gets to being over at that point in the game. And when reality just hits you that we're winning the game, we're going to be the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, we're winning the Southeast Division, everything that we've been struggling through for the past, not just couple of seasons, but the last 12 years, really finally being on the other side of that. Like you talked about it in the post-game live. Yes, 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020 were really fun seasons, especially the 18-19 season. You go on that crazy, unexpected run to end the season. But we knew that, like, at the very best, this team is out in the second round, right? You probably realize that with this team, like, the best, they're probably a second round out, like if you make it past Cleveland, unless something crazy happens and you don't see Boston in the next round, whoever we end up playing, I would like our chances if it's not Boston. But understanding that this is the first step in many years to come of the Magic being in the playoffs, and I just couldn't help but get emotional. Like I was legitimately like teary-eyed just at the realization that everything that we've been talking about, especially with this team for the last 7 months, 6-7 months, seeing that realized was just an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it was super special. And, obviously, we're not going to sit here and like poo-poo on the parade, but this team left it pretty late, right? Like we had a rough week, the 3 games we lost this week, looking the week before with the Charlotte game and everything. And so I think part of what makes today's as special as it is like, 9 hours ago from when we're recording this, we weren't sure. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We weren't sure how it was going to end. There was a chance that, we were going to go to Miami for this play-in game. And I think that's part of what made it so much sweeter. This team knew they were good enough to get there. They just struggled to get over the hump, right, for the last week. And so to see them finally do that, to see the joy on their faces, and I think ultimately, I think what makes it so much more fun for us Magic fans is it's just such a likable group, right? Like, not that the teams in the past weren't likable. Like, they definitely were. Like you said, those 19, 20 teams, bunch of likable guys. But this is just a team. These guys love each other. Coach Mosley is like the most fan-friendly coach maybe we've ever had. Like, the guy loves the fans. And so everyone's just really easy to root for. And so you want to root for guys that are good, good people and good teammates. And it's just really, really special. I'm still kind of dazed. I went into this game expecting that the Magic would win, but it's still hard to believe. I'm so fired up. I'm glad we get 6 days for, this team to rest and recover and prepare for what will be a very interesting series against Cleveland.
Really quickly, I want to address a question that people viewing or listening probably have. Where's Luke? Right?
Oh, yeah, we forgot about that.
Where are the nipples from Luke? Like, maybe it's not 5 in a row, but we clinched, the 5th seed. Luke is on a cruise right now.
With your wife. by the way.
With my wife, with his wife. And there is a perfectly logical, platonic, appropriate explanation for that. The company that my wife and Luke's wife, the company that they work for, basically just took like their entire team on a 3-day cruise to the Bahamas and everything like that. So Luke took advantage of that. But me personally, one, I knew that if both of us went, Kevin was going to have to do this episode all by himself. And it most likely meant that I wouldn't really be able to like devote my full attention to Friday's game against Philadelphia and tonight's game, or today's game rather, against Milwaukee. And to be honest, I'm glad that it's been a bummer, like getting all the pictures and videos. Everybody's having a great time without me. But today, like in that moment, Joe Ingles hit that 3. I'm like, thank God I stayed, and thank God they won, because if they hadn't won, then I would have been pretty regretful. So, but yeah, Kevin and I are here talking about all this kind of stuff. I want to let you all know, obviously, there's a new episode of the Six Fans Show up now. Ben recorded that outside of Kia immediately after this win over the Milwaukee Bucks. Really, really fun episode of that, so go ahead and check that out. The next episode of the Six Fans Show is going to be Game 3 at home, the Magic's first home game of this series, coming up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We don't know when that is going to be just yet. So keep your eyes on the schedule. I think that's going to come out tomorrow. I'd like the full schedule.
I would guess it'll probably be Wednesday or Thursday, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because the way the NBA had to
waiting
change
for the play-in games.
They usually wait for the 7-8 games to finish, the 7-8 play-in games. And because of Philadelphia's stupid building being booked on Tuesday, they had to move the East 7-8 game to Wednesday. And so hopefully they still announce it Wednesday, but if history is anything to show, they'll wait till that 7-8 game is done before they do it. So it could be Thursday before we find out the whole schedule, which sucks.
And that'll probably be towards the end of next week at the earliest, Game 3. So,
yeah. Based on like previous seasons, Game 3 will probably be Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, the 25th, 26th, 27th. That's typically when Game 3, like the window of Game 3. So yeah, April 25, 26, 27, Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be my guess.
So that'll be the next episode of the Six Fan Show right after Game 3. But you're probably wondering, what are we doing for Game 1? We are going to be collaborating again with the Orlando Magic and Michelob Ultra for a watch party at Wall Street Plaza, downtown Orlando. There's no better place to do it. It's like one of the biggest places to just have a massive gathering of people in the Orlando area. So there's going to be, massive big screens on each end of the street down there at Wall Street Plaza. So that game, it sounds like, is going to be most likely 1:00 p.m. On Saturday, the 20th, I believe that is. Yes. So yeah, that's not confirmed yet.
Not confirmed.
Though, correct? The time is not confirmed yet. But if you look at the slate, probably makes the most sense that the Magic's game will be that early afternoon game. But whenever it is, we will be at Wall Street Plaza. We're hoping with 2,000 plus Orlando Magic fans, Kevin. That's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you look at that slate, the other 3 games that are scheduled for Saturday would be Phoenix at Minnesota, would be the 7 seed in the West at Denver, which could be the Los Angeles Lakers at the Denver Nuggets, and then the 7 seed in the East, which is likely going to be the Sixers at the Knicks. So you tell me they're putting any of those games at 1:00? No, they're not. So I would literally bet my house that the Magic will be playing at 1:00 on Saturday. So we'll see.
But yeah, we'll wait for confirmation for that, but that's probably the most likely outcome. So just really looking forward to that. Kevin, we're here, man. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the loss Friday to the 76ers. It was a bit of an up and down, obviously not a great start. And then unfortunately, Joel Embiid gets hurt, in the first half. And the Magic got a little bit of life, sort of heading into half. And then Joel Embiid, obviously he's ready to start the second half and mostly just sort of played decoy. But Tyrese Maxey during the last few minutes of that game just closed it out for Philadelphia as the Magic tried to make their run. And Friday night, you're just thinking like, is the season going to come down to this? Like, are we really going to lose? The beginning of the week, we thought maybe we were going to be the 2 seed or the 3 seed, or you're going to have home court in the first round. And then coming into Sunday, it's like, if we don't win this game, we could be heading into the play-in. Just what were your thoughts and feelings after Friday's game, and what were your emotions like heading into the game Sunday?
Yeah, for me, Friday's game, of the three that we lost last week, Friday's game, I actually felt the most positive about, like when all was said and done, right? Like I really felt like the team played well. Obviously, we got outshot. I mean, which is par for the course for this team, right? I mean, what were the Sixers, like plus 30, from three compared to the Magic. And so outside of the shooting, I thought the Magic played pretty well. And so I had a more positive spirit after that one than I did like the two other losses, especially the Houston loss on Tuesday was terrible. And so for me, that kind of wave of momentum, even though it was a loss coming into today, I definitely felt super positive coming to today. I felt like the Magic were going to win this game. Did I think we'd blow them out by, a million, whatever? No, I really didn't. I thought, by all accounts, the Bucks were going to send it. Like they were going to go for this game. They were going for the 2 seed. And they really did. Like I said it on a post-game show, like, don't let anyone try to tell you that, the Bucks didn't go for this game, because they did in that first half. And so credit to the Magic, obviously, for fighting. But yeah, I felt confident. I really, really did. And I'm just so proud of how they responded. That was a lot of adversity over the last week. And so for them to respond the way they did under pressure, clinch a playoff spot, clinch the division, I'm just so over the moon, man.
Yeah, that Philadelphia game, you love the energy and the intensity that they were playing with, especially defensively. To me, it was like they had the energy, they were like the effort was there, but the level of detail, like the attention to detail and the focus wasn't quite there when you just talk about like lapses, or a lot of it was just bad bounces. Like, the Magic would have a really good possession, long rebound comes off the rim, and it just happens to bounce into like Nick Batum's hands for an open three, and that's a backbreaker. But it to me, it was like what you get for not having that focus defensively over the course of the last couple of weeks. And when you just try to flip that switch again, they were a little bit rusty with like their focus and their communication defensively. And then Sunday was, all right, we tried to bring that back Friday against Philadelphia. It wasn't quite there. Sunday, mostly spearheaded by Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs, which we will talk about. But it was just like that defense was all the way back. I want to go ahead and talk about the regular season in whole and do like the end of the regular season state of the Magic. So this week, the Magic went 1-3 with losses to Houston, Milwaukee, and Philly, ending the week and the season with a win over Milwaukee on Sunday. They finish as the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference and the Southeast Division champs with a record of 47-35, a 13-win improvement over last year. On the season, the Magic finished 22nd in the NBA in offensive rating with a rating of 112.9, third in the NBA in defensive rating with a rating of 110.8, and they finished 14th in overall net rating with a net rating of 2.2. Since the All-Star break, Kevin, in 27 games, the Magic went 17-10. They were 19th in offensive rating. They were 1st in defensive rating and 8th in net rating. Call back to our episode right before the All-Star break ended. Luke and I sat here and said that the Magic absolutely could be the absolute best team in the league in defensive rating over the course of those last 27 games, and they did that. And all offseason, we talked about how like 10 should be the absolute floor for this team in terms of defensive rating, and they could be a top 5 team in defensive rating. They finished 3rd, so feel really good about those sort of preseason predictions. Taking a quick look at the injury report, Wendell was available Sunday after dealing with back spasms in the Philly game. He had to leave that game. Jonathan Isaac was inserted into the starting lineup on Sunday, Kevin. And I don't know if we want to just jump right to that second quarter. Legitimately one of the most impressive defensive performances I have ever witnessed watching basketball. And Jonathan Isaac, with his defense, with his rebounding, especially in that second quarter where you hold the Milwaukee Bucks to 12 points, that was the difference in the game and what really got everybody going, I felt like.
Yeah, and obviously defense is the calling card of this team, right? And sometimes defense, can make a game sluggish or whatever, but when this team is at its best, it's when the defense feeds the offense. And so this team, very capable of getting stops, but when they go to the next level, when they play Magic basketball is when they turn defense to offense. And they really, really did that against the Bucks, especially in that second quarter. And so, yeah, that quarter was great. And again, hate to go back to this, but that is when the Bucks were still trying to win this game, right? Like that is still when the Bucks were playing everybody except Giannis, right? Like all their key guys, were out there trying to win this game in the first half. And yeah, it was that stretch in the second quarter when the Magic just literally took this game over and never looked back. They took that lead with what was like 1-something left in the second quarter and didn't trail again the rest of the time. I mean, just distanced themselves. I think I told you guys they gave up 58 points over the last 3 quarters, like combined, like, which is just insane. Averaging less than 20 points a quarter for the rest of the way. So yeah, that second quarter turned it around. And again, it's just a glimpse of what is possible for this team, especially when Jonathan Isaac is on the floor. And so, I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Isaac, you mentioned Wendell not starting. How does Jamal Mosley go back to starting Wendell after this? How? I like Wendell.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. Like, I like Wendell. I think Wendell has had a relatively disappointing season, right? Like, compared to the trajectory that we've seen him on over the past seasons, this has been not an improvement. If anything, it's been a regression for Wendell. And so you look at the playoffs, especially look at who are playing, right? And obviously we'll talk about the matchups and everything later in the week, but just this game in a vacuum, I don't care who are playing. How do you do that? How does Jamal Mosley do that? I can't see it happening. I know you could argue, well, he started with this group, however many games this season. Jonathan Isaac started 2. I don't care. I've seen enough. Like, stop the count, stop the vote, whatever. I feel like he has to start. It sounds like you agree.
For a couple of reasons. One, it's not even just about Jonathan Isaac. It's about the lineup as a whole. It's about the way that the team starts games. You started off this game in a little bit of a hole just because you could feel how tense the guys were offensively. A lot of really good looks, a lot of wide open shots that they missed in that first quarter. But Jonathan Isaac's defense is what allowed the Magic to get enough stops early on to hang around in that game. And then in the second quarter, like, J.I. comes out, like, I think 5 minutes into the game, looked a little bit winded, but then comes back in to start the second quarter, plays 10 minutes in that second quarter. It's not about his offense, right? He had 3 points, 2 rebounds, 1 steal, 2 blocks. In the second quarter, we talked about Milwaukee scored 12 points. They were 3 of 17 from the floor, 1 of 7 from behind the arc. Damian Lillard was 0 for 4. Chris Middleton was 0 for 3. Bobby Portis was 2 for 5. Patrick Beverley was 1 for 3. And that largely came off the back of, for some reason, Milwaukee it seemed like they were hunting Jonathan Isaac in pick and rolls, trying to get switches onto Jonathan Isaac. And possession after possession in that second quarter, Jonathan Isaac was either sending the ball into the third row or just causing clanks off the side of the rim for the Milwaukee Bucks. It was just so impressive. Again, seeing him get switched on to Bobby Portis and stop him in a pick and roll on a Chris Middleton, in another pick and roll on a Damian Lillard, and Damian Lillard just gives the ball away, tries to sort of relocate, set it up again, gets the ball back, tries to go at J.I., and then tries to hit the little step back mid-range on him, and just bricks off the side of the rim. Like, when Jonathan Isaac is on defensively, forget Wembanyama. J.I. is the best defender in the world. The most versatile, like a true switch 1 through 5. And when I think of J.I. and I think of defense, I think back to that game in 2019, I think it was, or maybe early in the 2019-2020 season at Dallas, when he just ruined Kristaps Porzingis' life, or that possession where he blocked John Collins 3 straight times. This game against the Milwaukee Bucks, arguably the best defensive game of Jonathan Isaac's career. He single-handedly flipped this game.
Yeah, he did. And, he could argue about which one is the best of his career or whatever, but to have that performance on this stage, like, got to get a win, and he does that. He's put not only pressure for the team, pressure for him, like thrust in the starting lineup. Now, he said after the game, he actually had a little bit of notice, more notice than we had. He was told on Saturday that he was going to start, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pressure for him. Obviously, he's a lot more mature than most of the guys on this team, right? He's been around for a long time. So I don't necessarily think that pressure would have, bothered him necessarily. But, when look at everything that was on the line today, is a lot of pressure. And so for him to go out there and do that, it just proves that he's capable any night, any opponent. That's what he can do. He can turn the game around. And yeah, I mean, totally changed the game. That stretch of no field goals for 7+ minutes for Milwaukee. I mean, that's ludicrous. When you look at that team, especially when you think about what they did to us on Wednesday, like night and day difference from Wednesday to Sunday. Yeah, it was awesome.
I think it was like the last like almost 7 minutes, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
I think they had like 3 free throws, but other than that, they didn't score at all. Just really, really impressive. The other part about starting Jonathan Isaac is he just gets more minutes against the other team's starting unit. Like that's the biggest thing. Obviously, he's super impactful in the bench unit, and that bench unit has been one of the best in the league all season because of that, partly in due to Jonathan Isaac's defense. But when we get into the playoffs and other teams' rotations are shortening up, like being able to put Jonathan Isaac on Bobby Portis early, who got off to a good start and had a really good game, but Jonathan Isaac was able to make things tough on him, or Chris Middleton or Damian Lillard. In this next series, it's going to be Darius Garland, it's going to be Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, those guys. So I'm right there with you. I just don't see a logical way that you can go back to Wendell Carter in the starting lineup. To me, it would be a massive mistake from Jamal Mosley if he were to start Wendell in the next series.
Yeah, I think also pointing out, if he's concerned about it, like rocking the boat or whatever, I mean, we heard one of the best bites of the season from the post-game press conference about Wendell. This idea that it was asked of Jamal Mosley, we saw Wendell come to the scorer's table, and he ended up going back to the bench, and it was asked about that to check into Jonathan Isaac, and he was asked about it. He was like, "Well, I didn't tell Wendell to sit down. Wendell told me, hey, J.I.'s rolling right now. Let him cook," basically, is what he told Jamal. And Mosley was like, "Okay." He said, "Let's let the players decide it," and that's what they chose. And so this idea of like, well, he's gonna have to start Wendell to keep continuity, keep team chemistry. Wendell was out there pushing for Jonathan Isaac to stay on the floor because Jonathan Isaac was playing well. Like, that is the team that we're working with here, guys. That's the team we're rooting for. And so if you think Wendell is going to have a problem with coming off the bench, if that's what's best for this team, I think Wendell's going to be all for it. So yeah, it's hard to imagine a scenario in which that starting lineup doesn't stay the same that you saw today, in 6 days against 5 days as you're listening to this against the Cavs.
And can we talk about how good Wendell
was awesome
off the bench? In 14 minutes, the dude was a plus 27, 7 points, 2 rebounds. I feel like if he starts off the game, like guys around him don't have great energy, he sort of feeds into that. Like he matches the energy of the guys that he's around. But you cannot help but sit on the bench and watch Jonathan Isaac in that second quarter and not be fired up.
Yeah.
I felt like that played a huge role in the energy that Wendell played with when he came in off the bench. Like defensively, he on Brook Lopez, on Bobby Portis when he was checked in, Wendell was awesome. Like playing with energy that we haven't seen from Wendell in a few weeks. So if that's the Wendell that you're going to get coming in off the bench, especially against probably, weaker lineups to a certain extent, I'm all for it because he looked great coming in off the bench today.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say about this, again, we'll break the series down later in the week, but the big buys that Cleveland has, Wendell has to play well. No matter what role he is, starting off the bench doesn't matter. He's got to have a really good series. I should say a really solid series. Wendell cannot be a bad player for you if you're going to beat that Cavaliers team. I really believe it. Whether it's Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, he's got to have a solid series for you to have a chance.
We would, really do ourself listeners a disservice if we did not talk about Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner in this game. It felt like each of those guys just had their own half today, right? Mm-hmm. Like the first half was all Paolo Banchero. In the first half, he had 17. Starting in that first quarter, he had 11 of the Magic's 22 points in that first quarter. And you could tell early on, Paolo was very aware of the moment. There have been questions about Paolo. He hasn't looked the same the last couple of weeks, hasn't been as assertive. And this was like, no, I'm back. Understanding the moment, understanding the stakes of this game, and just the attitude and the confidence that he was playing with early on was really, really encouraging. Again, looking back at that first half, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists in the first half, 50% from the floor, 1 of 2 from behind the arc, and 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Franz struggled a little bit in the first half. Missed, I think it was his first 5 shots, but finished with 10, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a steal in the first half. But the second half, Franz was incredible. 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 6 of 11 from the floor. And the fact that in the biggest game of the year, where it's not exactly win or go home, but there was an element to that of how disappointing it would be after the season they had to fall to the play-in. And you end up getting 26, 11, and 7 from Paolo and 25, 5, and 3, and 3 steals from Franz. The biggest game of the year, your 2 stars who are 21 and 22 years old, Kevin, for them to step up in the moment. And it's been a while since we had a Franz Paolo game where they both went off like this. Could not be happier, could not be more excited. Those guys desperately needed to have games like this to sort of get their confidence right heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'll even add to that a combined 3 turnovers between the two of them, right? You can say maybe they didn't shoot the ball well in certain stretches of this game, whatever, but you can't say they hurt you outside of that. 3 turnovers over the course of a whole game when they played a combined, 67 minutes combined, and they have 3 turnovers in 67 minutes for the most part as your primary ball handlers. I mean, yeah, hats off to them. And again, we keep talking on this show, and Magic fans keep talking about the fact that this feels like just the beginning. If they are in a win in your in game at 21 and 22 and they're doing that, come on, man. Come on.
Special stuff.
Stop. Come on.
Now, Jalen Suggs in this game, don't look at the box score if you want to see Jalen Suggs' impact on this game. He and Gary both, actually, I feel like those guys both played 27 minutes. Jalen with 4 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Gary with 3 points, 2 assists, 1 steal. They were not asked to carry the load offensively. For these guys, it was all about making life tough on Damian Lillard, on Patrick Beverley, on Chris Middleton. And those guys stepped up to the plate. Jalen just playing like an absolute maniac. Really, Damian Lillard did not have a good game. Damian Lillard ends up with 16 points, was 2 of 14 from the floor. That is the impact that Jalen Suggs and Gary Harris had on this game. Chris Middleton with 4 turnovers, Bobby Portis with 3 turnovers, Patrick Beverley with 2, Dame with 2, Jay Crowder with 2. A lot of that was because of the pressure from Jalen Suggs, from Gary Harris. The Magic in this one, they were inviting all the pick and rolls. If you want to run a pick and roll, we're just going to switch, whether that's to get Jonathan Isaac on a Damian Lillard. That ended up in a lot of matchups where Jalen Suggs or Gary Harris was on Bobby Portis or was on Brook Lopez. And those guys, just sort of digging into those big guys, causing deflections and allowing the Magic to get out on the run. At one point in this game, the Magic were outscoring the Bucks in fast break opportunities 17-0. And the Magic are not a good fast break team. They're not a good team in transition. But those guys, Gary, Jalen, Franz, J.I. defensively were just causing so much havoc. It allowed the Magic to get out on the break, and that was a massive advantage in this game. Those guys were awesome, Kevin.
Yeah, that stat ended 25-2. You outscored them 25-2 in fast break points. And I looked it up during our post-game show. On Wednesday, I think I saw the Bucks, they had 12 or 14, 16 fast break points, something like that, mid-teens fast break points. So number one, you hold them to 2 fast break points, which is awesome. And then flip it around, you get 25 of your own. Again, it goes back to that whole defense leading to offense thing. It was a clinic. Obviously starting in the second quarter, but third quarter, early fourth quarter, especially that stretch where you got the back-to-back Franz cold dunks off of steals. It was totally electric. And yeah, I mean, that is the peak of Magic basketball right there. It's not going to happen like that every night, but man, that stretch was it was awesome. It was super fun.
And as we talk about the first half being Paolo's half, the second half being Franz's half, looking at the bench unit, the first half was Mo Wagner's half, the second half was Cole Anthony. Those guys, especially Mo in that first half when the Magic were really just searching for offense, he was able to get you 8 points. And in that second half for Cole Anthony, 11 points, 4 of 5 from the floor. the Magic were up, 15 plus, at that time when he started to make some of those buckets, but really just sort of helped put the game away. Wendell tweeted after the game, like, that's what we talk about when we're talking about by committee. We talked about how great Wendell was. He was great off the bench, too, with 7 points, but just an all-around effort from the Magic, start to finish. Didn't have a great start offensively, but guys like Paolo, like Mo Wagner were able to help you sort of weather that storm. And once the offense got going in the second half, you just blow this game open again. Joe Ingles hits that three with 7 minutes to go. And Doc Rivers basically waves the white flag at that point. They realize that probably not going to win this game because of some of the other results that, you could easily check during the game. They realized that this game really wasn't going to matter all that much for them. And they pulled their starters, the last, 7 minutes of this game. And yeah, man, just what a freaking win. Like, I'm going to remember, let's take this opportunity now to just talk about this season and sort of do a brief regular season recap. I'll remember this game for the rest of my life, but I am going to remember this season for the rest of my life. We've joked that enjoy the fun of this season, while it lasts, because you're really playing with house money. Next year, there's going to be tons of expectations and pressure, all that kind of stuff. But Kevin, just exceeding even our wildest expectations going into the season, which were pretty lofty. Like Luke said 42 wins. I had us at 43. You end up at 47. You probably should have had like 49 or 50 wins. Yep. Just crazy to say. But what a freaking season from this Orlando Magic, man.
Yeah. Again, part of why the season is so special is because we feel like it's the beginning, right? But even let's say it all falls down. Let's say this house of cards collapses for whatever reason. Let's say this team falls apart or whatever. This is still going to be such a special season. Like for the Magic, for this fan base. I think back on, some certain moments, some certain games, but I think overall, just again, the fight that this team has shown, like Jamal Mosley, man. I mean, He's unbelievable. He's not going to win Coach of the Year, especially because the Thunder locked up the 1 seed in the West today, which is crazy in itself. But yeah, just thinking back on this whole season, I think part of it is going back to that 19 and 20 team. We made the playoffs and everything, but that felt more like the end of an era. This feels like the beginning of an era. But I think part of what is still so fun about this is the whole rest of the league has no idea what's coming. They have no idea. We do. Like the Magic ride or dies, the faithful, the diehards. We know this is just the beginning, and we're still flying under the radar, and we're enjoying it. Like, we're just hanging out, right? Like, we're vibing. This is where we're hanging out under the radar. Is this the playoffs where we, announce ourselves to the world? I don't know, but it's probably going to be next year when people are going to start recognizing. If it's not here the next few weeks, it's going to be next season, and so. I think that's part of another reason why this is so special. Obviously, once the season is done, whenever that might be, whether it's in 2.5 weeks or in June, who knows? We'll do a proper recap of the whole season. But like, I think back on some of the regular season moments. Like, for me, that win in Denver is one of the best wins in Magic history, period.
Remember when we swept the Denver Nuggets this year?
The reigning NBA champions, one of only a couple teams to do that. But like, that win in Denver for me, I was thinking about that right before we started the show. Like, what are the best games of the season? To me, that's the top. Like, that's one of the craziest, best regular season games in Magic history. I think back to the Sacramento game, which was right before, even though it was a loss. That was one of the most thrilling Magic games ever. The regular season games. Think about the Boston play-in game. You think about this Bucks game. I mean, this game right here belongs in that, top 5, top 10 list.
The win at Minnesota.
Oh man, what a comprehensive, just like that was such a convincing win, even though it wasn't a blowout necessarily, but like, again, it just showed we belong in all these conversations. And so
the win at home over Phoenix, where you just completely shut them down in the fourth quarter,
like 12 points or whatever it was in the fourth quarter. So many of those moments. So yeah, super, super special. And I'm just glad this team got properly rewarded. Yeah, we struggled down the stretch. And I mentioned this to you guys. It kind of sucks thinking about like the fact, hey, if we beat Charlotte on that Friday, we have home court against the Cavs versus being on the road, or pick whatever game you want. you mentioned that, Memphis game on the road, which was an awful loss. I still hold that Miami road loss, when they had 8 guys, that's a terrible loss. Lots of nights like that. But this team worked so hard over 82 games, 4 preseason games to get to this moment, and they deserve to be in the playoffs. And I'm just so glad that for their sake and for ours, but for their sake, they earned it. They got it. It came down to the last day, but they got it. And now, who knows? Like the script of this season, the best might still be around the corner, which is hard to believe that after 6 months of all the things we just talked about, there's a world out there where the best moments of this season still haven't happened yet. And that's April 14th to say that. I mean, we've been dying to say those words for a really long time.
It feels like we've been talking about this all season, like every couple of weeks. We're like, hey, I can't believe how fast this season is flying by. And the fact that, we're 6 months from the start of the season, and I'm just like looking at some of these, like you start the year 116-86, just the at-home blowout over the Houston Rockets. Then you go on the road. Remember the Lakers game, you lose 106-103, where Jalen Suggs was crying?
Yeah.
At the end, the third game of the season, Jalen Suggs was crying after a loss because he wanted that so bad. Back to back, you're right there with the Clippers until that third quarter. Then Paul George goes crazy. That game's over. Paolo Banchero starts the year pretty slow, but then hits the game winner the next game, November 2nd at Utah. You also lose Wendell at the end of that game. That was also the start of the Markelle Fultz knee tendonitis stuff. But the slow start, so what? This is what I do. Post-game moment from Paolo. Then you destroy the Los Angeles Lakers at home, your first game back off of that road trip. We're not going to talk about the Dallas game. We're not going to talk about Atlanta in Mexico City. We're not going to talk about that. But then shortly after that, you go on the 9-game win streak where you beat the Denver Nuggets on Wednesday. Then you beat the Boston Celtics at home Friday with half the arena in green on Black Friday in the in-season tournament game. That was awesome. We don't have to talk about the next, month and a half because that was honestly pretty rough. There's some nice performances in there, but there's some not great as well. You talk about the loss, in Golden State, the loss in Phoenix, both of those sort of coming down in the wire. And then right after that, where you lose Franz in the first couple of minutes at Sacramento, it looks like you lost Paolo Banchero as well, but he comes into that game. The Chuma Okeke, in the second half of that game, guys hitting threes, breaking the franchise record for threes in that game with that roster didn't make any sense whatsoever. And then to follow that up 2 nights later with the win in Denver over the defending champs, really, really crazy. And then, January was really, really tough. You have the big win at Minnesota, sort of like the week before the All-Star break. Shaq's jersey retirement against Oklahoma City on TNT. Then you beat the New York Knicks at home the next night. You and I were both there for that game. You get to the All-Star break, and then you go 17-10 over the course of the last 27 games. There were some stinkers in there. There were some tough, some really frustrating moments and stretches and losses. But to end the season with this win, man, is just like, it's crazy to relive all of that in a couple of minutes and think like that's the last 6 months of our life. Like that Houston game feels like it was 2 months ago. Like this season has just flown by. And like you said, the fact that like the best could still possibly be yet to come in a first round playoff series with the Cleveland Cavaliers is just crazy.
Yeah. And again, as you read through all that, I just feel like this is what this team deserves. Like this team deserves this moment. Again, they left it late, whatever. They deserve the celebration of today, and they deserve the opportunity to prove themselves to the league against Cleveland. And what I love about this, there's so many things that I love about this, but I can't get over the fact that this is how it has ended up, that we're playing Cleveland. Like, again, not because on paper, like, oh, it's an easy opponent. It's not. Like, that's a tough team. They're going to be favored. They should be favored, right? Like on paper, they got the stars, they got all this stuff. But that's a team that our locker room believes they can beat. Like, I guarantee you, when they heard we're playing Cleveland, it was like, oh, okay. Like, if it's Milwaukee, it's like, this team's always going to be up for it, right? It's a Mosley team. Like, they're always going to believe they could beat the Bucks and the Knicks. But the Cavs are different, right? Like, the fact that they get this opportunity, they deserve it. They deserve it all. I think it's awesome. And again, to go from 22 to 34 to 47 wins in that span.
25 wins over the course of 2 years is crazy. Double-digit win increases in consecutive seasons.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, I know it's a yearly award, but for the work that Mosley has put in over the course of the last 3 seasons, and maybe the Thunder, nobody thought they were going to be the 1 seed, but people thought the Thunder were going to be right in the thick of the playoff hunt all season long, especially with how well Shai Gilgeous-Alexander played last year. Jalen Williams, you're adding Chet Holmgren into the mix there. Like, people expected great things out of the Thunder. Nobody expected the Magic to be here. So strictly off of the strength of the Magic exceeding expectations all year long, to me, that's why Jamal Mosley is the coach of the year. With the same roster, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Literally.
Like, we didn't add Chet Holmgren to this team.
We added Joe Ingles. That's who we added to this team. That's you can add Chet. We added a 36-year-old
Jonathan
Australian.
Isaac, I think, had a good bit to do with it too.
Yeah,
Looking back on it. Now that I mention it, adding J.I. to this was a big deal. But before we get too far into this preview, talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, I want to take everybody back for what has become one of our favorite segments here. This week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. Going back to the 9:33 mark in the third quarter, Magic are up 6 at this point. Had a little bit of a lead, going into the half, but this is where the Magic really started to go on a run and put pressure on the Milwaukee Bucks. Patrick Beverley picks up his dribble. Gary Harris is fighting for the ball with Patrick Beverley. The ball ends up on the floor. Gary Harris is diving for it. Patrick Beverley is diving for it. Jalen Suggs sees an opening and dives into the fray there. Somehow he ends up with the ball, rolls over. The ball squirts out to Paolo Banchero. It's a one-on-one with Damian Lillard, and it's showtime. Paolo Banchero sort of gives Damian Lillard the little shoulder shove out of the way, elevates for the two-handed jam, giving the Magic at that point an 8-point lead, and Kia just erupts. And that was the start of the run that really put this game away for the Orlando Magic. So for those reasons, that is this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. And talking about Jam Hot Chicken, proudly serving the city beautiful, Jam Hot Chicken is bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida, located at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. They are now open on Tuesdays. They, prior to the last couple of weeks, were only closed Monday and Tuesday. Now they're only closed on Mondays. So every other day during the week, you can get your Jam Hot Chicken fix. All their chicken is hormone and antibiotic free, made fresh and fried in 100% peanut oil. Some of the best chicken in the world, certainly the best chicken in Central Florida. Probably the best chicken in Florida. I have a friend of mine who he travels all over the country, is a massive foodie, loves Nashville and LA style hot chicken. And he told me that Jam Hot Chicken is absolutely the best, not even hot chicken, but the best chicken he has had in the state of Florida. So be sure to check out Jam Hot Chicken on all social media. You can check out Jam Hot Chicken at jamhotchickenfl.com to access their menu, their online order. You can get their music playlist in all things Jam Hot. Shout out to Jam Hot Chicken.
Jonathan, before I sit here and tell you about the amazing people that make this show possible, I'm going to insert my own special ad read. We didn't talk about this, okay? If you're listening to this show right now on Monday up until probably around 3 o'clock or so, our friends at Rockham, who sponsor our post-game live show, have put together a special code celebrating the Magic making the playoffs. You can use code PLAYOFFS, just the word playoffs, at checkout at Rockham.com. That'll get you not 20%, but 30% off of your order. Again, it's what they call like a flash code, like flash sale. It's good for 24 hours. Magic game ended about 3:30 on Sunday, so I figure probably around 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. That code should still be good. That'll get you 20% off your order. So if you're trying to get geared up, get socks, get underwear, definitely check them out, Rockham.com. Use that code PLAYOFFS up until Monday afternoon for 30% off. And then the rest of the season, you can use our code MAGIC20 to get you 20% off the rest of the way. Guys, let me tell you about the people that financially support the show. We have a Patreon. It's a place where you can support your favorite creators, your content creators, whether they do sports or whatever. And obviously, We have some amazing people that support us and make all this stuff happen. When we think about all the things we've done this season, we've talked about this whole season, 82 games, 4 preseason games, however many watch parties and events and giveaways and all that kind of stuff. And again, we're just getting started because the playoffs, we got all kinds of crazy stuff coming up with the watch parties and everything else. None of it would be possible without our patrons. And I'm about to thank, our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons here in a second. They're also the people that'll be invited to our Zoom call that'll be on Thursday night, kind of celebrating the regular season and looking ahead to the playoffs here. We'll get to join in with that on Thursday night. So if you want to be a part of that, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. But now I'm going to thank all of our Hall of Fame and Elite patrons. They are Court Cousins, Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Ellis, Jonathan Borges, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Putch, Dave, Paolo and Franz's Warmth, Pierre A., Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Danimal, Bobby Skinner, Goaty93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Langone, Jose Esquilin, Caleb Pete, Andy Cannibalism, Ty Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Barus, Half Freakin, Shahim 177, Bulby the Don, Himmel Ban Himro, RM Prov 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Mysterious Mosley, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace, Fritz, Currency Kev, Bruv Sal, Kason Green, Santi Leon, Kane Eckler, The Distract, Ahmad Timza, Chantsu, Tom Gadsden, Dead Air, Richard Tuttle, Jeremiah Quintero, Magic Wire, Debo 1980, Magic Matt, Michael Thompson, Mama Richmond, Next Snappa, What's Up Playoffs 2024, like that, Dylan Fay, Sammy, David Duffy, and Smith Sheik's Ship Sinks. Big shout out to all of our patrons. You can find more information about our Patreon at patreon.com/the Six Man Show.
Yeah, that last one is brutal. That's why
brutal. It's been a while since I've read that list, and it's a tough one these days.
It is. It luckily, I feel like my brain and my mouth just like sync up, and it's like muscle memory at this point. So, but yeah, let's talk about this matchup with Cleveland, who, by the way, Kevin, it seems like Cleveland lost on purpose Sunday because they wanted to face the Orlando Magic in the 4-5 matchup. I haven't told you this, Kevin. I have, luckily, very privileged. I have like direct lines of communication with a few of the guys on the team. I let them all know, hey, if you're not aware of this, Cleveland is saying they wanted you guys. And I asked them, I said, please make them pay dearly for this mistake. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think Cleveland... I mean, I kind of get it. Like when you look up and down, the Eastern Conference, the other teams that you could have ended up with, but just saying like, you know what, we want Orlando is just, it doesn't sit right with me.
I mean, you said it. Like, if you look at the team, I think ultimately it's not about Indiana, right? It's about Philly. Like all these teams wanted to avoid Philly, which if I can take a moment and say, shout out to New York. I don't say that very often. Shout out to them for playing their game today, like actually trying to win and winning in overtime. It's a very Tom Thibodeau thing to do. But shout out to them for like playing through their season. Like I would be really proud of, as if I was a Knicks fan, for them doing that. Now I'd also be really mad because they're probably going to face the Sixers in the first round. But kudos to them, not backing down. On the opposite side of that would be the Cavs, I think at one level I understand it. But careful what you wish for, right? Like we've seen things like this that were similar in the past, and it backfires. Like you think you're going to handpick these matchups, and sometimes it doesn't go your way. And so, because the opposite is true of the Magic. Like I said at the beginning, like the Magic are very happy with their first round opponent, like thrilled. You go 2-2 against them in the regular season. And, I know you looked up earlier, and you might have those numbers later, but like, we weren't really healthy for most of those games. We were and won, and we won that game. So I think this team feels super confident, and they should. And yeah, a little bit extra bulletin board material for the Cavs there, potentially trying to line up the playoff situation. So yeah, fired up about that for sure.
I want us to call our shot right now. I want to be on the record what our predictions are for this series, Luke. Oh my, look at that. My muscle memory, just talking about that, Freudian slip.
Oh,
Kevin, what do you think happens in this first round series between the Magic and the Cavs?
Oh, gosh, I didn't know we were going to be predicting already. Oh, man.
Just your gut.
My gut is the Magic win.
In?
6.
6, that's spicy. I'm saying Magic in 7. Just because, Donovan Mitchell is going to win probably, a game or two on his own. The Magic haven't been there, right? Like the Cleveland Cavaliers are a team that's been there, won a playoff series. So experience goes a long way, right? Like what we saw today, the way, or really the last week, the way that teams have been loading up on Paolo Banchero, it's going to be that to the nth degree come playoff time. And it's just going to come down to whether or not other guys are able to make plays and whether or not other guys are willing to make shots.
Yeah. I just want to clarify one thing. That's my gut. Now, if you're asking for me to shut my heart down and just use my brain, I might give you a different answer.
Well, what is that answer?
Cavs in 7 would be that answer. But as I'm sitting here right now, and again, if this was January, December, when the Cavs were the hottest team in basketball, might be different. The Cavs, you think the Magic backed into the playoffs? The Cavs full on reverse pedal to the metal into the playoffs. That. I know there were obviously the Donovan Mitchell injury is part of that, but he's been back for 2 weeks and they kept losing. And again, is there such thing as a little bit of basketball karma that comes their way for what they did today? Maybe. So yeah, all that combined, I think there's something to it, but you're right. As far as the actual matchup goes, it's funny sitting here and saying I think we're excited to face this team because they have a lot of the things that on paper you would think that's going to be a problem for the Magic. The biggest thing being, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in the paint. A team that lives in the paint, not just scoring the paint, but initiating offense by getting to the paint and then maybe finding cutters or kicking out, whatever. Those two guys are no joke, right? Terrific interior defenders. Evan Mobley, very capable of defending multiple positions, getting out and doing that. But I still like our chances. The key for me in this series is going to be less about Donovan Mitchell and even somewhat, to some extent, Darius Garland. But if you think about how this team has beaten you in the past, it's been guys like Max Strus, they're role players and stuff, catching fire. Can't have that. You can't have it. I'm almost tempted to say, let Donovan Mitchell have his way, do whatever he wants, and shut everybody else down. Let him get 45. Kind of similar to what we did with the Cavs in 2009. Let LeBron do whatever he wants. Now, I'm not comparing Donovan Mitchell to LeBron. Let's just be very clear. But let him do whatever he wants and just take care of everybody else. I think you got a chance. So, obviously, we'll spend a lot more time on this series. I think we might have a special guest later this week to, from the Cavs perspective to help break it down. It'll be interesting to hear that. But those are my initial reactions to this series and maybe what I think might happen.
I think I misspoke a couple of minutes ago saying they won a playoff series. I know they played in a playoff series together. They lost last year to the
Knicks, right?
To the Knicks, to the Knicks in 5. But still, having that playoff experience, the Magic don't have any of that right now. Right. So it's going to be really interesting to see how a lot of that plays out. And going back to Donovan Mitchell, in the month of April, obviously he's coming back off of injuries. Not really playing all that well since he's come back from those injuries. 24 points, only 44% from the floor, 36 from behind the arc. Cavs are 2-2 in those games since he's been back. Jalen Suggs is going to be just tasked with slowing down Donovan Mitchell the best that he can in this series. Going to see a lot of Gary Harris as well. Markelle Fultz is a guy that we didn't really talk about from this Milwaukee Bucks game, but played 5 minutes. Yeah. And it was just really apparent that he didn't have it. I think there's going to be a super short leash on some of these guys when it actually comes to the playoffs. And we've talked about this, but Markelle is a guy that could probably be played off of the floor in a series. I think there's the chance, probably a small chance, but today it felt like there were certain parts in the game where they were just begging for some Anthony Black minutes, a guy who hasn't played a ton recently. In the third quarter, our starters, Paolo, Franz, Gary, Jalen, those guys looked gassed. Now, it paid off with Jamal Mosley just sort of riding the hot hand there. But I was just like, man, if Dame starts to get it going, you almost have to bring Anthony Black in, even if it's for 4 or 5 minutes, just to try to make life a little bit tougher on him. So that's going to be something to look at. Cleveland, sort of middle of the barrel, offensively this year. I think they were 16th in offensive rating, but finished 7th in defensive rating. This is going to be a defensive series. It's probably going to be a low-scoring series. If the Magic are really going to have a chance to win the series, it's going to have to be that. And to me, you have to steal one of the first couple of games on the road, whether that be game 1 or game 2. You've got to win your home games, and it's going to come down to, can our role guys get hot for a few games? Mm-hmm. Like if Jalen, who has been really sort of quiet offensively as of late, if he can get it going and knock down a few threes in a handful of these games, that's going to have the potential to really swing the series. And when we look at the season series, Cleveland and the Magic, they split those games 2-2. Cleveland, took the first one. The Magic took the second one. Cleveland took the third one. The Magic took the fourth. Like the purest definition of splitting the series. The first game, going back to December 6th, Magic lose 111-121. Magic were not healthy. No Markelle, no Wendell Carter Jr., no Jonathan Isaac in that game, and the Cavs were fully healthy. You go to December 11th, the Magic win 104-94. Still no Wendell Carter Jr., no Markelle Fultz, but you have a healthy Jonathan Isaac in that game who gives you 13 minutes and was a +8 in that game. Spoiler alert, the Magic won the games that they had Jonathan Isaac. They lost the games they didn't have Jonathan Isaac. And guess what? Right now, it looks like the Magic are going to have Jonathan Isaac potentially starting and playing like 25 minutes a game. There's no back-to-backs in the playoffs. You have to like those odds there. You go to January 22nd. This was a blowout. 126-99, Cleveland over the Magic. They were mostly healthy. That was the Sam Merrill game where he goes 8 of 13 from behind the arc and just totally killed you. The Magic were starting Anthony Black in that game. No Markelle Fultz, no Jonathan Isaac in that game. And then February 22nd, their last matchup of the season, 116-109. Guess what? The Magic were fully healthy. Cleveland had Darius Garland, but didn't have Donovan Mitchell. They had Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, Max Strus, and Isaac Okoro starting, but no Donovan Mitchell in that game, which is obviously a big factor. So you've got to like the Magic's chances. A little bit of bulletin board material. I don't know why you would give that to an Orlando Magic team who absolutely is petty. Shout out to Eddie House. And yeah, it's really going to be interesting, man. I like our odds. The only other team that I might have preferred over Cleveland would maybe be Indiana, just given the success that you've had in sort of the clash of the styles of those two teams. Indiana just really being offensive minded, and now they've got Pascal Siakam, so they're a little bit better defensively. But I would have liked to have home court advantage. That would have been a little bit better. So picking up one of those games against Charlotte or Houston or earlier in the year against Miami when they had 8 guys, or against Memphis, yada yada yada. We can go up and down the schedule with games that the Magic probably should have won. But 4 or 5 matchup, yeah. I mean, if you move on, you're probably facing Boston in the second round. But let's just worry about the first round for now. And I think if the Magic, if you would have told us earlier in the year, like, hey, you're going to have Cleveland in the first round, who only won one more game than you did and have not looked great coming down the stretch here, we all would have been ecstatic to find out that we were the 5th seed and that it was going to be a first round matchup where you really like the Magic's odds.
Yeah. Again, going back to kind of the matchups from the regular season, it's interesting that we did not, even though we played them 4 times, did not have a game when both teams were 100% healthy. And so it's going to be interesting coming into this series where both teams on paper are healthy. Now, obviously, there's stuff, Donovan Mitchell coming back, Magic dealing with their own, different things. However, both teams get 6 days to rest up. Magic obviously have to travel in there, which is unfortunate, but 6 days to rest up, get healthy. And again, we talked about, the two teams somewhat backing into the playoffs, but especially the Cavs. I mean, you mentioned the Magic's record since the All-Star break. The Cavs are 12-17 since the All-Star break. 12-17. So this whole idea of them backing into the playoffs is not just like the last week like the Magic. It's the last 2 months. They have not been the same. Again, December, January, they were really good. After the All-Star break, something happened. And so I'd like to think the Magic can capitalize on that. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy, but I think they've got just as good a shot, as they would against them.
Can we kick reality out of the room really quickly? I just want to ask one hypothetical.
Let's do it.
Philadelphia versus Miami. If Joel Embiid is able to play that entire game, not the entire game, but if he's able to play, the majority of that game, right? We both like Philadelphia's odds when it comes to that. Especially
because Embiid didn't play today, by the way. So he will not have played since Friday all the way to Wednesday. Yes, 100%
right. And then like the Bulls, Atlanta probably favor the Bulls, but I think that game is like sort of a coin flip. Either of those teams versus Miami, we would probably give the nod to Miami, right?
Probably, but if it's the Bulls, I think it's really close. That's more of a coin flip to me than Chicago, Atlanta.
You really think so? I don't know. I just don't trust the Bulls when it comes to these types of situations.
I don't trust them. I think they will beat the Hawks. I feel very confident about that. The thing that always gets me with the Bulls is who they have. Like DeRozan can single-handedly win a game. I know Miami has Jimmy Butler who can single-handedly win a game. I get all that. But a team like Chicago, I'm never going to count them out. To me, that's more of a coin flip. But yes, I would agree with you. If I had gun to my head, I'd pick Miami.
All right, well, let's say it's Miami, and they end up against Boston. Boston's going to have some demons to exercise. Now, that team is way more loaded than they were a year ago. They're a much better team. They cakewalk through the regular season. They were by far the best team in the regular season. But if Miami finds a way to upset Boston, and the Magic find a way to upset the Cavs, and you end up in a second-round matchup against the Miami Heat. If you would have told us at the beginning of the year you could potentially have a Cleveland Cavalier first-round matchup and a second-round matchup versus the Miami Heat, who did not end up with Damian Lillard, need I remind you.
That's right.
We all would have been standing on our heads in anticipation for a second-round matchup. And I would again say, in a 7-round matchup, versus the Miami Heat, in which they just had to go through hell to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would really like our odds to go to the Eastern Conference Finals.
You took a little bit of a page out of my book, because I was going to do a similar exercise with you, Jonathan, but in a little bit of a different way. I want you to, like you said, let's just daydream for a moment. A different scenario, similar but different.
Reality is not in the room. It's not in the house. It's not even in the neighborhood right now.
Just for this segment, okay? I had a similar thing I was going to propose to you. You're talking about Miami Heat. Last season, remind me, Jonathan, Miami, how did Miami shoot the ball in the regular season?
They were the worst team, I believe, in the league at shooting the basketball. Kevin, we're not even on the planet anymore.
Hold on. Okay, Mr. Miami beating Boston. Okay, get out of here.
I think that's more realistic than the Magic becoming the best shooting team in the postseason.
You don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay, fair enough.
Miami, as you said, terrible shooting the basketball regular season last year. They get in the playoffs. What happens, Jonathan?
They were the best shooting team for a month and a half in the postseason.
And they rode that wave all the way to Denver. Of course, they lost to Denver, which we're grateful. Thank you, Denver. I'm just saying it's possible not to be the best. That's not going to happen. But can this Magic team, which they have done in stretches of this season, get hot? Right? In decent stretches, like 10, 12 games at a time, they can find it. Can they find it for 14 games here? 7 against Cleveland, you win that. I'm not saying you beat Boston, but can they make it an interesting series and earn the respect of the NBA if they beat Cleveland? It's possible. That's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to go there. It's possible. We've seen it done in the not so distant past, right? It just happened. It's possible.
I will say the Magic shot the ball better this year than the Miami Heat did last year.
I know.
To me, it comes down to Franz Wagner, right? Like, I feel like this Magic team, with the volume that he would be shooting if he were more confident and more comfortable, because right now, like, he's just blatantly passing up open looks from behind the arc because he just doesn't have the confidence. The Magic finished this year 24th in the league in three-point shooting, 35.5% from behind the arc. Like, league average right now is like somewhere like around like 36%. So the Magic just below league average. If Franz Wagner, right, if he can get to like 36, 37%, back to where he was the first couple of years, if he can shoot that in the playoffs on like 3 or 4 attempts a game, that is going to open up everything for the Magic. And I think in that type of scenario, you could see the Magic creep up to 36, 37% from behind the arc, which would do wonders, especially when we talk about this first round where it's going to be an ugly sort of drag it out type of game. When we look at pace, the Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers are both in the bottom 10 in terms of pace for the regular season. The pace in the playoffs is going to slow down. These are going to be slow, methodical, ugly games. If the Magic can get any type of increase in three-point efficiency, that could be the difference in a first-round series for the Magic for sure. The Miami Heat are almost dead last in pace as well. So in this hypothetical, I mean, the Magic getting 2 or 3 more made threes a game could legitimately be the difference in an entire series, as crazy as that sounds.
We already predicted the series. I want to make one more. This is just random prediction. You know who's due for like a hot shooting game is Gary Harris.
I was gonna say it. Gary freaking Harris.
Not shooting the ball great of late, but I'm predicting he's gonna have one. He's gonna have like a 4 of 4, 5 of 7, 6 of 8 or 9 game in the playoffs. I really think like he's already battle tested. Playoffs are not going to be too big for him. They just got to find him when he's open, and I think he's going to have a game that he might single-handedly, turn it around or win the game for the team as far as like growing a lead or whatever. He's due for a good game. You talk about shooting. He's another guy that 1 of 4 today, 1 of 5 Friday. In the 2 biggest games of the season for the Magic, you go 2 of 9, like not good enough, even by Gary standards. So
he finished the season at 37% for the year. Last 15 games, however, he's at 32%. So he's in the middle of a slump.
Yeah.
If that dude can bust out of that slump and give you 37% from behind the arc, that is going to do so much for the starting lineup, especially if you're starting Jonathan Isaac, who for the year finished at 41% from behind the arc.
Wow.
Joe Ingles. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Jonathan, that was the last 15 games for JI. I was messed up with my filters. For the year, Jonathan Isaac finished at 37%, which is pretty good. Yeah. Joe Ingles, 43%. Jalen Suggs, 39.7% from behind the arc. JI, 37%. Wendell, 37%. Gary Harris, 37%. Paolo, right at 34%. Cole, 33.8%. Mo at 33%. And Franz at 28%. If Franz can get to 36, 37% in the playoffs, man, that's going to do wonders and just really open up everything.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about Gary Harris in this regular season, I'm not going to take the time to do the math because there's too much going on in my life. I can only imagine what his season percentage would be if you take out, what was that, January, where he went like 21% from 3 for an entire month. He was awful. Or December. It might have been December. It was December. That's what it was. It was December. Take out that month. Homeboy be like 45% on the year. Like he's been money. So anyway, that's why I think he's due for a good game. But that's what's going to take. Like guys are going to have to make shots. Even to go, this Cleveland team's going to want to slow it down, low scoring. You're still going to have to make shots to keep the defense honest. Especially, like I said, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. It's going to have to happen. But it's going to be interesting. Jamal Mosley's first playoff experience as a head coach. That's the other question mark. What's he going to do? Who knows? Time will tell. But man, I'm so fired up, man.
I'm really excited, man. I'm excited for the first couple of games. Again, we're going to have watch parties at Wall Street Plaza for games 1 and 2. So if you're in the Orlando area or Central, Florida area, even if you're not, like if there is a destination trip, like let's say you want to come to Orlando for games 2 and 3, right? This is going to be the type of trip that's absolutely going to be worth that. So we don't know the time specifics yet. Those are going to come over the course of the next couple of days when these games are going to be played. I just cannot wait for game 3 in Kia. I was at game 3 in 2019. Obviously, nobody was at the playoff games in 2020, but the electric environment, man, is something that I've never experienced. Like you could feel the tension in the air. And the anticipation and the excitement around this team, like that 2018, 2019 team, I think paled in comparison. Orlando has been waiting for a team like this, and I genuinely cannot wait to see what that environment is going to be like game 3 in Kia Center.
Yeah. First off, speak for yourself about people not being at the game in 2020. I was at
you
game
were on
3.
the screen?
Yes, I was one of the digital fans at game 3 in 2020. Thank you very much.
Sure, buddy.
But then going back to like these watch parties, and one of our patrons was actually DMing me earlier, on Twitter talking about the schedule and stuff. Fuchsia, she's coming all the way from Hawaii.
Wow.
To come to game 3. Yes.
Let's go.
So whatever excuse you think you have, she's coming from Hawaii.
For real.
For game 3. So figure it out, especially if you're local. It's going to be a really fun time. Not just even at the game, but even outside the game and all that kind of stuff. It'll be fun.
Gotta link up with Fuchsia. That's going to be exciting.
That's what she said. She said,
them.
Yeah, she said you're going to have to stop by and say, hey. The other thing, Jonathan, I wanted to add, and I might be jumping the gun here a little bit as we're wrapping this conversation up. I feel like we have to do it. We have to have a conversation about what I'm wearing. Okay. Today was the end of the Classics.
Is it though? Is it for sure that we're not getting those in the playoffs at all?
I've never seen a Classics jersey in the playoffs.
That's so upsetting.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they're eligible in the playoffs. I really don't.
I don't think we saw them at all in 2019.
I don't think any team is allowed to wear throwbacks in the playoffs.
That's
and so I think today was the end of the Blue Stars Classics run.
So like the 35th anniversary season has like officially come to an end in that regard.
In that regard, yeah. Which I think is funny. When we talked about this whole season, all the fun it has, this is going to sound really lame to some people, but part of like the joy and like the aura of the season was the anniversary. Like the fact that this special season happened in the 35th anniversary, that so many special moments got to happen in the shirt that I'm wearing right here, which is, if you're just listening, is the Stars, the blue classic jersey we wore all season. Got to happen on the special court. Got to happen on nights where you have special, former players and staff and all that kind of stuff in the building. You're honoring, you're recognizing them. We got to have so many special moments that all of that just like is part of the special feeling, like the vibe of this season. And so, yeah, it's kind of emotional, saying goodbye to this jersey for who knows how many years. It's been a long time since we've seen it. Who knows when we'll see it again? But very, very special time. Grateful to be able to experience it with this shirt. And this one will be in the rotation for a really long time.
So I just went back and looked at photos from every game from that 2019 series. We did not wear the Classics, so that seems to all but confirm your theory there that we've probably seen the last of these Classics for quite a while. I mean, you're going to have another 5-year anniversary season, or another anniversary season for the 40th in 5 years. But they're not going to roll these right back out again, right? Like it'll probably be, my money would be on like the white and blue pinstripes because we haven't seen those in forever. It's just been such a long time since we've done those. It's sad, man. Like I posted the photo earlier this evening, finally got the group photo back from our group night that we had a few weeks ago when the Magic played the Grizzlies, where we got to play on the floor. And we got to play on the Classic floor. So the fact that we were able to get that photo, I was able to kiss the star on the floor. Always wanted to do that. So I'll always hold that like really like near and dear to my heart, that experience and the fact that it was on that floor. And I'm right there with you. Like part of what's made this season so awesome was the fact that it was an anniversary season where you have all of the legends like coming back at various points during the year. I can't wait to see who's going to be at like playoff games. Like I'm sure like Terrence Ross is going to be there for sure, but other, Orlando Magic legends, maybe a little Tracy McGrady appearance would be cool. Gortat will probably be there. Rashard Lewis, like some of those guys.
Hedo, for sure.
Exactly. Maybe Jameer, depending upon, what's going on with Philadelphia. But yeah, man, like part of this season, what made it so cool was the 35th anniversary season, the way that it was kicked off with the Classic jerseys, like the Jeff Hamilton jackets. I'm always going to remember this season, like for the rest of my life. Like some people are not going to like this take. When the Magic went to the finals in 2009, I was 16 years old, or I was about to be 16 years old. I was 15 years old at that time. And when you're a young kid and your favorite teams are really good, you don't have a lot of life experience and fandom to sort of make references to. So you feel like, oh, my team is just always going to be really good, and you take advantage of it. And as I grew into adulthood and suffered through a decade of awful Orlando Magic basketball, finally being able to root for a group that is this talented and exciting in the long term, but also just dearly loves one another and roots for each other and pulls for one another, and they just want to see the other succeed. And just like how close we are now to the team and just the community that we've engrossed ourselves in. This has been my favorite season of Orlando Magic basketball my entire life. You were much closer to those 2009 teams, like being at a lot of those games. So I don't know if you feel differently, but like as it stands right now, like this is the favorite like season that I've had being a Magic fan. And part of it is because it's just been so fun watching them exceed expectations.
Yeah, for me, the 2009, like it's not going to be topped until we come close to that. Like that, as far as getting to the playoffs, getting to that level of the playoffs, like that playoff run was just
you were at most of it. I mean,
yeah, not most of it, but yeah, several of the games I went to and everything. But it was just, it's hard to put into words that playoff run, and we've done several episodes about it. But like just especially the amount of close games, like it was the most tense 2 months of my entire sports life. Like it was like every other night I was literally basically running a marathon while sitting in my living room because my heart was just racing every other night for 2 months. It was awful. So that's very special. But you're right. I mean, when I look back on, I've been watching this team religiously for, well, this will be 20 years now. It was 2004 when I started, you know. This is certainly like a top 3, potentially could end up being top 2. I mean, heck, if they make a crazy run, it will be my favorite. But yeah, nothing can top that run until a Magic team does it, until a Magic team gets to the conference finals or the finals. But yeah, I mean, especially because there was that expectation wasn't there. Like I did not come into this season thinking, oh, this has the chance to be one of my favorite seasons of all time. Like it wasn't like that. And so to be sitting here April 14th, 15th, and look back on the season with that in mind is just really, really special. And like I said, the best memories could be around the corner, which is just crazy.
I want to close with this because it's just a mark of how far we've come. Somebody tweeted today that they said, like, I forget who it was, so I appreciate for not giving you, I apologize for not giving you credit. They tweeted, at least we didn't end the season in the most Orlando Magic way possible. And the thought that came to mind was that we did. That this is marking a new era for the Orlando Magic where we are not the same old Orlando Magic who in years past would have lost this game today, probably would have lost both play-in games, and we would have been sitting there wondering like what the hell happened. The way that this team has just been built, obviously through lucky ping pong balls bouncing around. You have Paolo Banchero, you got Jalen Suggs, you got Franz Wagner, but the way that this team has been built, how bright the future is, and the culture that Jamal Mosley has built. I was texting with Dan Savage, who runs a lot of the stuff on OrlandoMagic.com. We were texting last night primarily about the UFC event that was going on, but I told him, I was like, man, I'm so nervous for tomorrow. And he texts me back. He says, don't fear, they've got it. Like a dude that is that close to the team, feeling that confident about what was going to take place and seeing that like live out in real time, and just this team taking the belt to the what, shout out to Pat Bev, was just like really, really impressive. And I think like this is we've been talking about this is the last season, like this is as bad as we're going to be for quite a while. And just that thought of like, no, we did end the season the most Orlando Magic way possible. Their backs were up against the wall. They had to get it done. They exceeded expectations all year long. And they just sort of like drew into one another, fed off of each other's energy, and they got the job done. I think moving forward, that is the Orlando Magic way. It's not the collapses. It's not the disappointment. It's not the embarrassment, the humiliation. We're truly entering into a new chapter with the Orlando Magic.
Everybody in, man. Everybody in. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. It's what's going to happen here. It's Cleveland. It's pretty special. Really, really cool.
People are up and down Twitter just killing the Cavs for what they did today. I just retweeted a tweet that said the basketball gods will not reward the Cavs for what they did today. That's for sure. Yeah,
NBA subreddit. All I see when you look at like the threads about the Cavs or the Magic facing the Cavs is go Magic. Like fans of all other, especially all the Knicks fans, because like I said, their team went and played the game today. Like they gave their effort, and because they were quote unquote rewarded with probably playing the Sixers, but just a laundry list of Knicks fans saying, go Magic, get them, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty fun. I hope we become America's team, at least for the next couple weeks, and they root for us.
I cannot wait to see how much Cleveland is going to hate Jalen Suggs. That's what I'm looking forward to as well.
Mm-hmm. It'll be awesome. Well,
it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, let's go ahead, wrap this one up. Really, really exciting season. Thank you guys all so much for rocking with us all season long, those of you that have. And to the folks that have been listening to the pod since the very beginning, look how far we have come. We've been talking about this the last couple of episodes, but we're going to have an episode that's going to come out Thursday. That's going to be our last, quote unquote, normal episode of this season, as once the playoff starts, we're going to be recording an episode after every single game. Still going to be a post-game live after every single game as well, so be sure to tap in with Kevin live on YouTube after every Magic game. But myself and Luke, we will be recording an episode after every Magic playoff game, and that'll be in your podcast listening device, whether that's later in that evening or the next morning, sort of whatever is going to happen. So ramping up. The Magic are ramping up, and so are we for this playoff run. And going to be a lot of sleepless nights over the course of the next couple of weeks, but this is why we do it. We're ready for it. Kev, anything else before we wrap it up?
I don't think so, man. Like I said, kind of crazy. Big shout out to everybody for following all season long. It's been a lot of fun, not just this team, but here at the show. It's been a lot of fun, and it's just amazing to sit here. I think of, I've been here 3 years with the show. Think back at the last couple of seasons where we've come here at the end of the regular season, the Sunday at the end of the regular season, and we're officially in off-season mode once we hit, stop on this recording here. And it's crazy that
we're planning lottery parties.
Yeah, planning lottery parties, which is, not happening, right? We know generally where the Magic will draft. I know they're tied on record with some other teams. There might be a coin flip, but it doesn't matter, right? The Magic will not be in the lottery. I will not be watching the draft lottery probably. I don't know. We'll see. But to be sitting here the last Sunday of the regular season, and we're not done. We're not done. The team's not done. The show's not done. We got a lot more to go, and I just could not be more excited for what's around the corner.
We're going to be at Wall Street this May, but it ain't for no dang ping pong balls, baby.
Let's go.
All right, that's going to do it for this one. For producer Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!